Actually, I've been having some problems getting the whole system to work, but hopefully we don't have the video today, at least my video, but we will have all the slides displayed. Now, before we go into the details of what we're going to look as far as the events that are happening and the commentary that is related to it, let's turn to the first book, Genesis, and turn to chapter 19, Genesis chapter 19. Now, this is after Lord destroying the earth with water. Every intent of the hearts of man was evil continually. And so the first earth, or you can basically call the first phase, from creation to the Noah's flood, or the flood during the days of Noah, humanity was completely wiped off except for 8. And then the Lord started again. Even he started in the animal kingdom and in the plant kingdom. He started anew from after the flood. And here you see again, as you go forward, nations and as generations are established here on earth, nations are formed, cities are formed. In a sense, prominent cities and nations and rulers are cropping up in different parts of the earth. And you see Sodom and Gomorrah, one of the most green, luscious place on earth, at least at that time. Today it's a wild and a wilderness place, a salt pit, as you can, as some would say. But in those days it was very lush, very fruitful. East, which is basically Sodom, from the point where Abraham and Lot was looking. Lot looked towards the east, which is basically towards Jordan and those areas. He found it to be filled with springs and green, extremely green for his herds and for vegetation. And so he chose Sodom, and he finally ended up in Sodom. But you see here the nature, the lifestyle and the nature of the people that lived in Sodom. Let us read Genesis chapter 19, verse 8 onwards. Now behold, I have 2 daughters who have not had relationship with man, or relations with man. Please let me bring out to you and do to them whatever you like. Only do nothing to these men, inasmuch as they have come under the shelter of my roof. These men, especially all the men of all the ages, verse 3 onwards. Let us read from verse 1 onwards. Now the 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, as Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. And he said, Now behold, my lords, please turn aside into your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise early and go on your way. They said, however, No, but we shall spend the night in the square. And he urged them strongly. So they turned aside to him and entered his house. And he prepared a feast for them and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. By the way, one thing to notice here is this. Here, who prepared the feast for the angels? It is Lot. The question is, where was his wife? If you look at the previous portions, the same angels, along with the Lord, was in Abraham's house. There you see both Abraham and Sarah. They prepared a feast for the guest. Here you see, Lot's wife, this woman, is not there. It is he that prepared the feast. Something to note. So you can understand the times that they were living in and the culture of that city. Where was this woman when the angels were there, or when these men came? And he prepared a feast for them and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, surrounded the house, both young and old, all the people from every quarter of Sodom, every single quarter of Sodom, they gathered together, all men of all ages, because these two angels, they showed themselves as men, and they have come there. And what did they want? And they called out to Lot and said to him, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may have relations with them." But then Lot went out to them at the doorway and shut the door behind him, and said, "Please, my brothers, do not act wickedly." He is appealing to them, he is pleading with them to let go of his two visitors, because in the Middle East, a visitor that comes into your house, he or she should be protected and should be completely taken care of for 3 days. That's how it is. It is the responsibility of the host to take care of the person for 3 days. So here Lot goes out, and he tells them, "Please, my brothers, do not act wickedly," because it's a wicked act. "Now behold, I have 2 daughters, and who have had not relations with men. Please let me bring them out to you, and do them whatever you like. Only do nothing to these men, as much as they have come under the shelter of my roof." But they said, "Stand aside." Furthermore, they said, "This one came in as an alien, and already he is acting like a judge. Now we will treat you worse than them." So they pressed hard against Lot and came near to break the door. So they were actually going to literally pick up Lot and in a sense rape him. That's what they were trying to do. What did the angels do? But the men reached out. These are the 2 angels. But the men reached out their hands and brought Lot into the house with them and shut the door. They struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves trying to find the doorway. Now, are they leaving? No. Even though they were struck with blindness, they were still, they were at the door, like zombies, continually pursuing the ones that they want to. They were blinded by all sorts of wickedness, this kind of wickedness, this insanity that got into their head, right? God just sold them over to this passion, this degrading passion. And they wanted to have a relationship with those men, and they were not willing to let go, even though they were blinded. This is the depravity of sin, and in as much as it is it is God given, because they rejected God or any counsel or any any boundaries. And even when they were struck with blindness, they still pounce on ahead to take these men. You can understand the violence here. Just see the violence here. Jesus said in the last days, the days will be like the days of Lot. Remember one thing, violence is increasing now. In Loudoun County, in a school in that district, I think you may have heard about this, a transsexual boy, he became a girl, he went into a girl's bathroom and he violently attacked a girl in there. The father of the girl, hearing this, came to the school and asked, "What is going on? Why is this allowed in the school? My child is violated." And which was basically it was a sexual crime. And you know what the school authorities said? They ignored it completely. They said nothing like that happened. They were not willing to pursue anything against this transsexual boy. And what did they do? They transferred the boy to another school. Now this father, when he came again for a school board meeting and raised this issue up, understand one thing, that girl, his daughter was violated completely. And when this man came back to the school board meeting to raise this issue up, he was actually asked to sit down, and they called the cops on him. And they came like a SWAT team and carried this man out and charged him with some crime. Okay? This is what is happening now in some parts of the United States. Violence is one thing, and then unrighteousness. People who have been given authority and power, who should uphold righteousness, they are doing exactly the opposite. This is very much the day of Sodom and Gomorrah. This is very much the day of Lot. Violence is magnified. Unrighteousness is propagated purposefully. They really do not care. In which generation, at least in the last 10 generations, an act like this would be considered with great shock. The whole community would be in shock, in great shame. But nothing of that sort is there in the present community. Nothing of that sort. Nobody is kind of shocked at all. Right? And we are very much in that kind of an environment right now, where good is bad and bad is good, light is darkness and darkness is light. And moreover, majority of the people or the society is in this kind of spirit where unrighteousness is right and righteousness is wrong. That is where we are right now. It is inevitable that China will take an upper hand over US. Chinese state media celebrates new nuclear-capable 21,000 miles per hour missile that can circle the Earth in low orbit before striking anywhere from space and minute. Now, US intelligence agencies are in utter stunned or surprise. Now, I don't know whether they're acting it or they are really stunned, because it is true that China and Russia both are having an upper hand in decades right now. In over a couple of decades, that America was the lone superpower. Now you see that China and Russia have these kind of weapons that can go around the Earth several times before which it is detected, which means that they can strike any part of the United States without the United States knowing, or they cannot retaliate or send something back, just like a Patriot missile or something, to neutralize the incoming missiles. And if these warheads are tipped with nuclear warheads, then it's pretty much very dangerous. Now, America is without an equivalent to these kind of missiles. Now, I really don't care, because war do not belong to nations or the ones that the victory of war doesn't belong to the one who's got a good horse or a good chariot. The victory in war belongs to the Lord. It is not in the man or in the nation, it belongs to the Lord. But at least in a human sense, you can understand the downward trend, or basically the downward slide of US power, and how other nations in this world are challenging. And by the way, it should happen. It should happen. Because according to the book of Revelation, there will be 10 kings or rulers around the world. And American power should be reduced, and you see that slowly but steadily progressing. China's leap in hypersonic missile technology shakes US intelligence. Beijing has mocked America by saying the secret test of a 21,000 miles per hour nuclear-capable missile, which orbited the globe before returning to Earth to strike its target, is a new blow to US mentality of strategic superiority over China. Now, if you really look at out of the 20 or 30 aircraft carriers in the world, 11 or 12 belongs to the United States, and that's how the United States have been projecting power all around the world. Now, along with every these aircraft carriers, which is the might and power of this country, there are other warships that support them, and that is one of the reasons why to float an aircraft carrier is not an easy thing for a nation. Moreover, there should be expertise and officers of that caliber to control and to manage an aircraft carrier. But America has, I think, 11 or 12 aircraft carriers. No other nations have anywhere near to that. All other nations collectively may have somewhere equivalent to 11 or 12. Okay, and so America has been relying on it. Now it is not easy to basically destroy an aircraft carrier, but with these kind of missiles, which are supersonic, they're so fast, they cannot be detected with the things that America has right now. I don't know. I'm not an expert in these fields, but I don't know whether the intelligence agency is just faking this, saying that, hey, we don't have anything, whether they have a strategic, a response to these matters. But one thing is sure, that this nation is being brought down, and that we can see from the way in which we exited Afghanistan, and this nation, how it is considered in the world environment of nations. We can thoroughly see that America is being, the Lord Himself is cutting the pride of America down, and it is purposeful though. It is purposeful. For us believers, we don't trust in chariots or horses. We don't really care. I don't really care which nation has the largest weapon. Of course, amongst men these are good conversation, and amongst nations, it's a matter of pride. But for us, we know the Lord decides who wins a battle and who doesn't. And it has nothing to do with chariots. Starting a fire, US and China entered dangerous territory over Taiwan. There's another thing. The Chinese have been threatening Taiwan. They have been sending their planes into the Taiwanese airspace. The 25 Chinese fighter jets, bombers, and other weapons or warplanes flew in a menacing formation of the southern end of Taiwan, a show of military might on China's National Day, October 1st. The incursions, dozens upon dozens. No, it was not just one or two here and there. It was many. Okay, these Chinese aircraft and other faculties of the Chinese army, they did encroach purposefully and willfully in an act of defiance into the Taiwanese space. That followed and surged to the highest number ever on Monday, when 56 warplanes tested Taiwan's beleaguered air defenses. Taiwan's jets scrambled to keep up, while the United States warned China that its provocative military activity undermined the regional peace and stability. China did not cover. When a Taiwanese combat air traffic controller radioed one Chinese aircraft, the pilot dismissed the challenge with an obscenity involving the officer's mother. And so that is the situation between nations, and especially in the East. There may be a war brewing there. Things are really hot. Okay, things are really hot. Now, wars and rumors of wars is one important thing that will happen in the last days. We see all this bluster that is going on between nations. It only takes a spark to start something. And with people, modern people, the way they're filled with pride and hedonistic attitudes, they have given themselves off to pleasure. They don't like God. They hate God. They are lovers of pleasure than lovers of God. And when these men interact and nations interact, the nations of these kind interact, they are anti-God and they are against God. Even in America, that's the case. And when nations that belong to these men, when they interact with each other, it only takes a spark. It only takes a spark for really bad things to happen. And we will see something in that direction. If you really look at it, things are all winding up. You see the shortage of food items that are coming. Week after week, that news is getting stronger and getting traction and getting stronger and stronger, in the sense that the validity of that news is being established as weeks go by. And so we already see shortages of many things, and it may get, some are saying it'll continue on to 2022. Then there's another news right now where about 84% of the Israelis who are vaccinated, they are now contracting COVID again. In Sweden also, People who are vaccinated are getting COVID again in large numbers. For example, in one of the states in the United States, I forget the state, I think it is one of the northeastern states. It's the highest vaccinated state in the United States. But about 50 or 60% of those contracting AIDS, they are vaccinated. So now the vaccinated people are having AIDS. Oh, not AIDS, sorry, COVID. They are, they are being attacked once again, even though they are vaccinated. So it looks like this pandemic is going to continue on, at least at a lower level, but the numbers are all pretty high if you look at vaccinated people getting COVID. And with all these things coming up, and there's another news which will come later, it is surprising what happened this week with respect to volcanoes. Which we will look at. Now, on the other hand, in science, in a first surgeons attach a pig kidney to a human, and it worked. So remember what is said in the book of Revelation. There will be a market for what? Market for organs, or these kind of things which will become really available. Right now for a kidney transplant there's a long list. Now if pig kidneys are useful for this, naturally pigs are going to be grown and their kidneys are going to be taken, and there will be a big, huge market for this. Surgeons in New York have successfully attached a kidney grown in a genetically altered pig to a human patient and found that the organs work normally, a scientific breakthrough that one day may yield a vast new supply of organs for severely ill patients. Now, there are ethical questions here. I'm more concerned about the spiritual issues. Think about it, attaching an animal organ, a functioning organ, to a human organ. Is it the mixing of species? And that is what some ethicists think. It is the mixing of species. Is man going to deal with these matters rightly? No. Anything that you give to man, even the good things, are later used for vile and wicked things. So in this case also it is going to be the same way. Now, ground they are shaking. Here is the first video. If I'm not wrong, let me see. Oh, sorry. This is the first video. Now this is the sudden bursting and rupturing of the volcanoes. It is sudden for us, but they were expecting it in Japan. But the way in which it showed itself up is surprising. So here it is. Oh, sorry.
Japan's Mount Aso volcano erupted on Wednesday in the Kumamoto Prefecture, sending ash into the sky and raising the alert level for the mountain to a 3 on a scale of 5. Tomoaki Ozaki, director of the Japan Meteorological Agency's Volcanic Observation Division, told reporters following the eruption that there had been no reports so far of damage or casualties. But he warned that there was the possibility of another eruption, warning people not to enter the area within 2 kilometers of the crater. He also warned of the risk of falling rocks and pyroclastic flows within a radius of about 1 kilometer around the mountain's Nakadate crater.
It's so surprising the way in which these things show themselves up, how massive these things are.
A volcano erupted in Japan on Wednesday, blasting ash several miles into the sky and prompting officials to warn against the threat of lava flows and falling rocks, but there were no reports of injuries or casualties. Mount Aso, a tourist destination on the main southern island of Kyushu, sent plumes of ash 3.5 kilometers, 2.2 miles, high when it erupted at about 11:43 a.m., Japan Meteorological Agency said. It raised the alert level for the volcano to 3 on a scale of 5, telling people not to approach, and warned of a risk of large falling rocks and pyroclastic flows within a radius of about 1 kilometer, 0.6 mile, around the mountain's Nakade crater. Local police said there were no reports of people injured or missing as of Wednesday evening, and that 16 people who had gone hiking on the mountain earlier on the day came back safely. Television networks broadcast images of a dark cloud of ash looming over the volcano that swiftly obscured large swaths of the mountain. Ash falls from the 1,592-meter, 5,222-foot mountain in the prefecture of Kumamoto are expected to shower nearby towns until late afternoon, the weather agency added. Mount Aso had a small eruption in 2019, while Japan's worst volcanic disaster in nearly 90 years killed 63 people on Mount Ontake in September 2014.
This is what is happening, or this happened in Japan yesterday, and this is a well-known volcano. But the suddenness of the event. Now, this is not the only one. If you look at it, here is La Palma. This is a live. Now they started showing live eruptions of this volcano, and it's been going on for over a month now. Now, this is actually a live video. Okay, this is what's happening right now. This mountain has been burning for the last 1 month. Or this volcano, and it's continuously spewing. Now it is said that probably this may cause a part of the crater to collapse, and a huge part of the island would actually fall into the ocean, causing a large tsunami, which will, if that large tsunami can be so big that it will take off many coastal cities in Europe as well as in the United States. That is what is said. And by the way, this has been burning now, or this volcano has been spewing, La Palma has been spewing volcano. As you know, this is live video that you see right now. I think it is by AP News. Now, no, this is surprising, number one. Another thing is, if there is going to be a tsunami, how are the people going to be prepared? Because this has been going on for a month. Nobody knows when that is going to happen. When is the tsunami going to happen? No, when a volcano is doing this for a month right now, people will just go on with their lives because nobody can make sure when it is going to happen, when the tsunami, if there is a tsunami. But at least some are suggesting, or some are saying, this volcanic activity can cause a tsunami if it affects the island. Now, it is not unnatural for a volcano to go for a month or months. It is just that in this peculiar situation with the island and the fragile environment around it, and the fact that the island could be split, or the crashing down of the crater could cause something really bad in the ocean, a tsunami in the ocean. All these things are of good chance in this matter. So this is La Palma. The other one was in Japan. This is in Spain, near Spain, in the Canary Islands. Now, is that it? No, that's not it. What happened is in Israel also. You see that this is actually Amir Salfati, who is also a prophecy update guy, and he talks about what happened in Israel. So I'll just move to that part probably. Let me see if I can get to that part here. Well, if I can move there. For some reason I'm not able to go to that portion. What he said was there was a large earthquake, a huge earthquake. Well, initially it was small in Greece, and then the next one came, a larger one that shook Greece, Turkey, and even shook all of Israel. That's what he said, all of Israel. And he experienced it. I think he lives in Galilee, and so he also experienced it. And he was saying that yes, once in 200 years, there is an earthquake in Israel. But this is something that just started, and it's affecting 3 nations, or 3 or 4 nations, the surrounding nations. Now, of course, we see in the book of Ezekiel, there is going to be a war. It's called the Armageddon War, not the Armageddon War. Sorry, the I forget the name of the war, but in 38 and 39. The prophet gives a description of a war that's going to happen at the end times. And Israel is going to be completely routed. But Israel escapes, or Israel is given victory by the Lord, because the Lord sends a great earthquake. All sorts of things fall from the sky, destroying the enemies. Rain and hail, large sized hail falling on the armies, and completely, utterly destroying them. So this is what Ezekiel says, and he thinks that it is all a preparation for that kind of an event. Let me see if I can move it to that point. Yeah, I'm not able to move the video to that point, so hold on, let me see.
Is one of them strong earthquake strikes off Turkish Mediterranean coast?
Sorry, I'm not able to play this, but I'll send the video out. Hopefully you can look at it. But it's something that happened, an earthquake, not just one. Probably one. The first one is about 4.0 in the Richter scale. The second one was 6 in the Richter scale, so that was pretty high, and that shook even Israel, Greece, Turkey, and nations surrounding that area. So the whole earth is in a turmoil, one way or the other. Differently, and we know what is happening to our state in India, how the rains are causing havoc. Many people are dying. Then you see drought and supply chain problems. The West is specifically affected by the supply chain problems, because we in the West depend on everything coming from outside. Supply chain problem may not be a big problem for Indians, because in India food is grown pretty much from inside itself. From one state to the other it's transferred, so they may not suffer from that, but they are suffering from other calamities. Places where they have large mountains and active volcanoes, they are suffering from that. I saw rainy season brought so much rain in a particular place. I don't remember which one it is. So much rain in a particular place that the dams, they had to release dams, and people had to move on because the dams were overflowing. And even though the dams were supposed to control waters, because of the rain and the size of the rain and the huge outpouring, they had to deal with it in a different way, and people were affected by it. So in all these ways you see that one way or the other people are being affected, and we as believers need to be aroused to the situation as days go by. Of course, nobody heard about the Japanese volcano, though it was startling in Japan and probably in other places. We didn't hear about it. I just came to hear about it today. It is not a major news here. So how many other events like these are happening in different parts of the world? In Iceland, they are expecting another volcanic activity there. People are all, in a sense, they are traumatized. Because we believe in the Lord, and we have the Lord keeps us from fear, right? And because of that, we are able to get along, get through days. We have our own problems, but it is nothing when compared to what people without the Lord are going through. The concerns of life and concerns of death, fear of death, and the fact that life is very precarious. Dangers are lurking here and there. We read Psalms 91 and take great comfort and increase our faith, trusting in the Lord. But the ungodly, they don't have that. So the days are really getting troublesome. But for us, we know it is as Jesus said, the days of His coming are drawing near. The days of our salvation is coming near. Therefore, let us lift our heads, be prepared for His coming. Praise the Lord. May the Lord bless us with these words. Any questions?